Rudy, is this all right? Excellent. All right, welcome everyone. Sorry.
Do you want me to come out? Yep. Yeah. Love it.
We're ready to get going. Welcome everyone. Sorry for the little bit of delay, but welcome to Wills and acknowledging the traditional owners of the country, the Wurundjeri people, and welcoming also some very special guests to my electorate, which is fantastic to have the Housing Minister, the Federal Housing Minister Clare Oneill visiting Wills, and the State Housing Minister Harriet Shing, and my very good friend Jed Carney, my neighbour, the member for Cooper, and we've also obviously got the CEO of Community Housing, the peak body for Community Housing, who's here as well, Sarah Toohey, and James King, the CEO of Unison, the developers that are doing this wonderful project here. Now, I just want to say something about why housing is so important before I hand over to the ministers. The Albanese Labor government understands that safe and affordable housing matters because it's about one very important thing, and that's dignity. The dignity, the basic human dignity of having a roof over your head, a place to call home, a house to go to. Now, I grew up in public housing, and I was given that opportunity, my family, to have that basic dignity of a roof over our head. It made all the difference to my family, who came from Egypt, to settle in this country and actually make our contribution to Australia. That's why it's so important. And that's why I think all of us are so invested in the actions that we've taken in our first term. Remarkably, we've been so active on this because we know how important housing is. $33 billion, I hope I got that figure right, investment in public, social and affordable housing in a first term of a federal Labor government. And of course the state government has invested over $8 billion in social housing since 2014. That is why we are here today, because one of the bits of legislation that we got through, it's not a bit, it's a very important bit of legislation, the Housing Australia Future Fund, which is a $10 billion fund to increase the supply of social and affordable housing across Australia with a focus on addressing acute housing needs. That has been so important that we passed this through the federal parliament. Unfortunately, it was delayed for over a year when the Greens political party and the Liberal Party teamed up together and blocked it for over a year, playing politics with the most important bill around housing. But we passed it, and since we've passed it, we've got in my electorate of Wills over, well, I think it's about 430 social and affordable houses, homes under construction. We've got 800 homes under the build to rent under construction. We've got 1,000 residents in my electorate who've accessed the home guarantee scheme, which is fantastic for them. This all matters to people in my community. And people often ask, what has Labor done? We've done the work to actually start addressing the important housing crisis that we're all facing in this country. This is amazing stuff. And we've got more work to do, we know that. We know we've got a lot of work to do to address these issues. But it's great to have Clare Oneill here, who's done such a terrific job in progressing all of this legislation and all of these great bills that we're seeing. And I just want to give an honourable special mention to another colleague, Amanda Rishworth, who's Minister for Social Services. She committed $8 million into my electorate for the Safe Steps program, which is 25 homes for women and children experiencing domestic violence. We worked on that together. It's a really important initiative because it's all about helping the most vulnerable people with housing as well. All of this is critical for my electorate. It makes a difference to the most vulnerable people, people who are feeling rental stress, people who can't get into the housing market. Now, just to wrap, all of this is at risk. All of it is at risk, including the project right here where we're standing, the 59 social and affordable homes that are going to be built right here where I'm standing. That's all at risk and will not go ahead if Peter Dutton becomes Prime Minister. They have literally said multiple times, you could have seen Angus Taylor in the debate with the Treasurer last night and Peter Dutton, they are going to kill the Housing Australia Future Fund. They're going to cancel it. They said they will abolish it. So it's so important for Australians to vote for Labor, vote one for Labor here in Wills, vote for me to get re-elected, of course, so we can re-elect an Albanese Labor government to continue this work and make sure that the HAF is not scrapped and we are doing what we need to do for Australians when it comes to housing. So I'm going to hand over to the wonderful Clare Oneill, who's doing so much heavy lifting. I don't think she's actually going to dig the hole here, but she's doing all the heavy lifting in a legislative sense and a policy sense. It's been terrific in one term, so much progress, but more to do. Over to Clare Oneill. Thank you, Clare.
Beautiful, yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Pete, and it's absolutely wonderful to be here with a bunch of people who are the fiercest housing advocates in our parliament. Now, no one has to explain to Peter Khalil what a life-changing thing stable and affordable housing is in your childhood, because this man lived it, as did our Prime Minister. Let's remember that our country today is led by a person who grew up with a single mum who has a disability and had stable housing in his childhood only because the government provided it for him. Every Australian should be proud of that fact. Now, we arrived in government to find a housing crisis on foot that's really been a generation in the making. We also arrived to find a housing horror show. Approvals were going down, new constructions were rising by record amounts, and we had an absolute national shortfall of social and affordable housing. Now, since we have been in government, we have constructed a housing agenda that is easily the boldest and most ambitious housing agenda an Australian Commonwealth government has had since the post-war period. What are we doing about the national housing crisis? We're building more homes, we're helping renters get a better deal, and we are supporting more Australians into home ownership. And I want to focus today just on a few comments about building more homes across our country. You know, whichever way you want to cut it, there's a single answer to what's going wrong in housing in our country, and that is that we are not building enough homes fast enough. And our government is acting to change that. A $33 billion agenda, the majority of which is going towards making sure that we build more homes for Australians. Now, we're having this conversation right here on this site for a very specific reason. Our government has funding ready and a contract ready to be signed for 59 homes to be constructed on this site. This will provide desperately needed affordable housing options for people who live in the beautiful northern suburbs of Melbourne. And there's only one reason why this project is not going ahead, and that is because we have had to confront 3 years of an anti-housing coalition of the Greens and the Liberals. Now, let me say a little bit about the delay that's been caused here. You know, for the Liberals, they don't even pretend to care about social and affordable housing, so I really just set them to one side. But the real charlatans in this debate are the Australian Greens, who say all the right things about housing on social media and in their media performances, and then they come into the parliament and have consistently over the last 3 years voted for more homelessness and more housing distress for Australians. There is no question that this project would be further progressed were it not for those political charlatans in the Greens holding us up on this critical action. So I want people to be really clear. The way to get action on housing in our country is to elect a majority Labor government, and to do that you need to elect Peter Khalil as your local member in Wills. Now, let me talk a little bit about the national importance of what we are doing on social and affordable housing. We have a general housing shortage in our country, but we have a particularly acute problem at the social and affordable end of the market, and that's where our government is really stepping up. About 500,000 homes have been constructed across Australia since we came to office. Our big commitment is making sure that over the coming 5 years, 55,000 social and affordable homes are built with federal support. We are massively progressed in that task. 55,000. Today, we have 28,000 of those homes in planning or construction right now. Now, on the site right here, we are ready to get cracking. We can break soil on this land going into the end of the year, but I want to be really clear, this is only going to happen under a Labor government. Let me just say something quick about the Liberals' record on this. We need to build more social and affordable housing across our country. One of the reasons that we have such an acute shortage is because of the disgraceful attitude of the former Liberal government towards housing in this country. Remember, Tony Abbott deliberately withdrew the Commonwealth from housing Australians, and they did not have a Commonwealth housing minister for most of the time that they were in government. So it is no surprise to see that in the entire almost decade that the coalition were in office, they built 375 homes around our country under Liberal policies. 375, what an absolute disgrace. Our government takes a totally different view. We've already built 2,000 social and affordable homes around the country. We want to build 55,000 more over the coming 5 years, but it is only going to happen under a Labor government, and we need a majority Labor government that includes the member for Wills as Peter Khalil. Thank you. Now I'll hand to Harriet to say a few words. Ooh.
Thank you so much, everybody, for coming to this site today. This is an example of what can be done and what is being done in partnership with the Allan Labor government here in Victoria and the Albanese Labor government in Canberra. And as Clare has said, for many years, Victoria was starved of investment, starved of engagement, and starved of opportunities to deliver housing for those people most in need. This is not just about people who are on the housing wait list. It's also about workers. It's about early childhood educators, teachers, paramedics. It's about making sure that people who can live in their communities and work in their communities are able to find homes that meet their needs. The housing that we have here, planned to be delivered here, will be able to make sure that we have a range of homes in different configurations, 2, 3 and 4 bedroom homes. This is about partnering with the community housing sector. We know that where we engage collaboratively with not-for-profit, for-purpose organisations that deliver housing to people most in need, that we get better outcomes. We can build more and we can build more quickly. But be in no doubt, the Greens at every level of government, whether it's in council governments, in state government chambers or in the federal parliament, have not only sought to block housing but have delayed it at every turn. Whether it's because they say that social housing is too close to a town hall, or whether they say that in fact it doesn't stack up because it's not enough, that doesn't put roofs over families who really need and deserve housing that meets their needs. Housing that is safe, that is affordable, that is accessible and that is fit for purpose. No amount of political rhetoric from the Greens ever built a single house, and we're seeing that delay writ large now. For over a year, they stalled, they blocked, and they made all sorts of claims in the name of political high ground to deliver outcomes which were in fact not able to get out of the blocks. Housing which we would otherwise see developed and completed. And here in Victoria, in partnership with the Albanese Labor government, we've been able to deliver a record amount of housing through record funding. It's not enough to make up for the 9 years of inaction that we saw under a coalition government, but it is really significant progress. Peter, Jed and Clare have led the charge in this work, the sense of purpose and urgency. We're determined to continue this work. We're determined to make sure that this site, as well as sites like the one next door that we're delivering through fast-track approvals in the Development Facilitation Program, are able to deliver on the housing statement commitments we've made. The objectives that we have developed, not with rhetoric, not with philosophical point scoring, but with the desire to put more people into homes, are able to be delivered as quickly as possible. Thank you to everybody from the community housing sector, including Unison and the Community Housing Industry Association that is part of this set of solutions. It is hard work. There is no finish line for addressing the shortfall in housing, but we are cracking on with it and we're making good progress.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so we've got James and Sarah here. James is the person that runs the community housing organisation that will redevelop on the site, and Sarah is one of the community housing advocates, so I'll invite them to say a few brief words and then we'll come to your questions. So James, do you want to jump in?
Thank you, Minister. I thought I would just touch on the fact that Unison is a housing and homelessness provider here in Victoria, and obviously we're aware of the living crisis, the housing crisis that we're in at the moment. But at the coalface on the ground, my organisation has never been contacted as much by households under housing stress. So this project, providing 59 dwellings for those that are in need, primarily for families, won't proceed without HEF funding. So it's just an important step, a small step, but an important step in the need for delivering more housing such as this across Victoria. I just thought I'd say that.
Hi, I'll just echo a little bit of what James has said. The Housing Australia Future Fund is just critical for us building the social and affordable housing that Australia needs. In Victoria, there are 146,000 households in need of social housing right now. These are households that are either homeless, so they're sleeping on streets, in their cars or on couches, or they're in the rental market and paying more than they can afford, meaning they can't meet the other daily costs of living like paying the power bills and putting food on the table. Not only do we need to keep the HAF, we need to expand it so that we can invest year on year in the social housing that will make a difference in people's lives and keeping a roof over their heads.
Thanks, Sarah. That's great. Okay, so we'll come to questions.
So what confirmation have you got from the Shadow Minister that the coalition will not be approving the HAF project?
Yeah, so I haven't received any response from Michael Sukkar to the letter that I've written to him, and I just think that reflects the blasé negligence that the Coalition have taken with regard to housing. I mean, it wasn't bad enough that they did bugger all about this problem for the 9 years that they were in power. They spent the last 3 years trying to block and delay actions that the Labor government is taking, and we're seeing more of that from Michael Sukkar today.
I understand we're in caretaker mode, so is it realistic to expect the coalition to allow you to go ahead with this project?
Look, I just would have thought that any politician worth their salt in this country understands how serious the housing crisis has got, and the fact that we've got politicians who are standing in the path of very needy people getting access to social and affordable housing. I just think it's bloody minded. We've got a site right here where there is a company and funding ready to go, and we cannot proceed because the Liberals say that they are going to rip up these contracts. So I just think it's absolutely disgraceful and proves the main point here. If you want action on housing in this country, you need a majority Labor government, that will build housing, that will better protect renters and get more Australians into home ownership.
Do you have time to approve these projects between the election and June 30th?
Well, I can tell you that one of the most important priorities of mine in the months coming into the election was to get contracts signed as quickly as possible. But I want you to understand these are incredibly complex, multi-million dollar projects. We are standing on a site here where our government is going to work with the community housing sector to build a 10-storey building. It is going to house, 59 families. These are complex projects. We worked as hard as we could to get the contracts signed, and ultimately that would have been possible had the Liberals and the Greens not stood in the path of the Housing Australia Future Fund. And I'd say to you again, the Liberals are one thing. They don't pretend to care about the housing needs of Australians. But for the Australian Greens to consistently throughout this term behave like charlatans, say that they care about this problem, get on TikTok and make videos crying crocodile tears for renters, and then stand in the path of the construction of homes for the people that they care about, I honestly think it's time for them to just question the values that they say that they stand for. Their net effect in this term of Parliament has been to block and delay urgently needed action on housing. Now, we've got these projects through, but we would be much further progressed had the Greens not stood in our path repeatedly through this term.
Would you be interested in working with them, or perhaps the crossbench if you had to after the election to get this going?
Look, the Housing Australia Future Fund will continue apace, but that is only going to happen under a majority Labor government.
How do you mean why would the crossbench negotiate?
Well, the PM's been really clear. We are standing for a majority Labor government in this Parliament. He's not doing deals with crossbenchers. He's certainly not doing deals with the Australian Greens. We are going to form a majority government with the incredible people who are here behind me, and we are going to have an impact on this problem.
Is there a disconnect between, say, Labor federally have invested a lot in housing, but at state government in Victoria we've seen actually quite a lot of social housing, especially in North Melbourne and Flemington, actually be looking to be converted to positions like this rather than actual social
Do you want to jump in on that one, Harry?
disconnect on that?
It's not, in fact, what you've described. What we have done here in Victoria through the housing statement is facilitate the delivery of a range of different housing options. We know that we're 30 and 40% of people who are accessing homelessness services for the first time are coming from private rentals, that we need to increase the volume and the affordability of rental accommodation. We also know that as we see an increase in demand for people on the social housing wait list, that we deliver that housing and that we deliver it in a way that accommodates the needs of very specific groups, whether that's victim survivors of family violence, whether that's young people, or whether that's people in rural and regional Victoria. There is an entire spectrum of need across the housing market. The Homeowners Fund that we delivered here in Victoria, that the Commonwealth has adopted with the Help to Buy scheme, is also one way of moving people into home ownership. It takes an entire matrix of policy initiatives, and that's where, again, Clare and the Albanese Labor government have delivered this investment, have delivered these partnerships so that we can continue to achieve those objectives of more homes in the places where people want them, in the configurations that people need, and at a price that they can afford.
Just a question for Peter. Your opponent in this seat, I'm sure if she was told about what you're saying today, she would probably say, well, if a Green was elected here, she could push Labor to go further on these kinds of things. How would you respond to that?
Okay, you're all standing on dirt right now, aren't you? On dirt and some patches of grass. Yeah? If the Greens political party had not blocked the HAF for over a year, we could be having this press conference maybe on the 7th or 8th floor. It takes about 18 months to do this build. That is the practical, real effect of what they have done. As Clare said, the Minister said, the net effect is that they have delayed the build of social and affordable housing in my electorate and across Australia. You know, the people of Wills have a choice this coming election. A party that blocks and obfuscates and talks big on social media, or a party of government that actually delivers. The Labor Party and a Labor government actually delivers housing. Once we pass the half, we've got 430 social and affordable homes under construction in my electorate. It would have been a lot more if we'd passed it earlier. Yep. Or they can choose, well, they shouldn't choose, but they've got a choice of a Liberal Party that's going to tear up the contracts so none of this is going to get built. And that's the choice. I mean, I think the real important point when it comes to the contest here and around Australia is that the Labor Party has done a lot in the first term. Cost of living relief, the investment in housing, the important environmental policies. I mean, even locally, I got $5 million funding to revitalise the local environment, ripping up the concrete out of Moonee Ponds Creek. These are real things, real outcomes that we can deliver being a party of government. The minor parties and the crossbenchers, they can promise a lot. They do promise a lot. They don't have the mechanisms to deliver. Only a re-elected Albanese Labor government can continue to do the great work that Clare's already started in the first term and address the housing needs of all Australians.
Peter, you've got that particular political map, you've got a very broad electorate here, which is quite different socioeconomic to Carlton North. Can you maybe just describe sort of the social housing needs for the electorate?
Yeah. It is a very diverse electorate. In fact, Wills, I often say, it's almost like a microcosm of modern Australia. I have everything except farmland, although there is Joe's Market Farm at Ceres on Merry Creek. There is one farm, at least, in my electorate, but it is such a socio-economically diverse electorate, an ethnically diverse electorate. It is really modern Australia in this electorate, and it varies quite widely, whether it's down in North Fitzroy, the new parts of my electorate, right up to the suburbs of Fawkner and Glenroy. So the needs are different. But, you know, I've got people in my community who are younger people lining up for rentals on a weekend in a queue to inspect, you know, the queue snakes around the corner, and they're looking at a shoebox that might be $900 a week, but they're lining up to have a look at it. There is a real need here, and as I said earlier, the minor parties and others and the Liberal Party blocked progress on this, blocked the bill to rent, blocked the HAF. That has a real effect on those people lining up every weekend because it's all about getting supply into the market. Now, whether it's younger people or people trying to get into the housing market, our shared equity scheme, people are taking that up, the build to rent, which we've got 800 homes under construction after, again, the delay in the Parliament from the Greens and the Libs. These are all the real needs of people in my electorate. That's why I'm fighting so hard and so glad to have Clare Oneill and Harriet at the state level fighting so hard to get this job done for the people that need it in my electorate and across Australia.
One for Minister Oneill, if possible. Are you confident that Labor will hold all its seats in Melbourne at the federal election?
Look, the election's up to the Australian people, in this instance, the Victorian people. And what I want them to understand as they're going into a polling booth is that the only way to keep Peter Dutton out of office is to elect a majority Labor government. Remember, this man is no friend of us here in Victoria. He's been a part of a government that we consistently got dudded in. Less infrastructure funding for us. He personally cut $50 billion out of the health budget, which of course impacted Victorian hospitals. And I don't think anyone's forgotten when he came down here and lectured us all about how we're too scared to go out for dinner. You know, Victorians, in my experience, do not like Peter Dutton, and he doesn't like us.
Maybe one for Minister Shing, if I may as well. Do you think that a result at the federal election necessitates a rethink of your situation here in Victoria and your current leader?
No.
Does the Premier have your support?
Absolutely. That was a very short question and answer.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay, great.
everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Well done.
Guys, we should do a bit of